Calls to order in person. This is my first meeting I'm chairing in person, so I'm super excited. It's Tuesday, June 22nd. It's summer solstice. I almost said winter solstice. So it will still be light and bright out when we leave. I'm going to call us to order. And we do not have quorum, so instead of taking a motion on approval of the agenda, I will simply ask, are there any requests for additions to the agenda? Or modifications? Before we get started, Brianne asked for an update on the bylaws, which I'll do under number 3, committee business. All right. And we won't approve minutes until we have quorum either, so we'll wait on that. We're pretty close. And I will also do our public invitation. So we have time for members of the public to address the committee. I think all of our people here are either members of the committee or planning to give presentations. So I don't see any members of the public. But reminder, and this is for people who are watching the video later, if any member of the public has comments or questions, you're welcome to contribute and welcome to attend our meeting. I think that's it with this part. We'll come back and do it. There's one more person, Sabata's here. Welcome. Hi. Once we have quorum, which we might get, we'll come back and do approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes. All right. We are going to do subcommittee reports, but my understanding is that the subcommittees have not met. Is that correct?
We actually did not do that on the agenda last month.
Okay.
Oh, so I do have we skipped it. I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but so I have May's.
Okay. Do you want to give an update?
Sure. So the housing committee met in May, and there were 4 attendees: Stephanie, Vanessa, myself, and Edward. And then, EAC members, and then there were 4 Met Council staff members there, and I thought it was a really energizing subcommittee meeting. It was really engaging conversation, and maybe Edward or others can give us their opinion too, but there were a number of, we finalized our work plan for 2022, which we've incorporated into your document, the overall EAC document. And then we had a number of action items to come out of that. One was administrative, just trying to figure out if we could establish a clearinghouse location for housing subcommittee work. That's more of just continuity and consistency, which we have not figured out yet. Prioritizing Section 8 homeownership model. So there's a pilot coming out for Section 8 to be used for homeownership. And so the question that we left with was, how can the EAC help? I think the committee was really excited about that. It sounds like in previous years, the EAC has been excited about homeownership models. So we hope to be able to contribute or augment in any way we can, and if the pilot goes well, and potentially advocating for a permanent policy change on that at the federal level, potentially even. And a request for demographic information for Section 8 participation and geographic distribution of Section 8 participation was made. I believe that went out. Terry, I think, followed up. I'll have to double check, but I think Terry sent that out like the very next day.
Yeah, she sent it out.
Thank you. And then how can the EAC help in talking about an entitlement program for housing at the state level and coordinated entry? How can we contribute to statute changes at that level as well? So really it was focused on what the limitations are currently of making big housing changes and how we can plug into augmenting and supporting the efforts that the Met Council's potentially already doing and then even exploring impacting the legislative platform. So those were the things we talked about. I thought it was really productive, and again, there was a lot of great follow-up after the meeting on data requests that were made, so that was really nice and reassuring. So really, I think that's probably sums it up. Edward, or was anyone else in attendance? You were too, okay, and you're Vanessa, right? Okay. Vanessa. Do either of you have anything else to add to that?
That was it.
Okay.
Well, we did talk about federal section 3, which is job training and employment requirement tied to certain HUD funds that the Met Council may get. And typically those are related to housing related funding that is received. The response we got back was unclear to me. It was something like, well, because we do only section 8 now, which maybe I have a misunderstanding, but I also heard in that meeting that the Met Council still owns some public structures for housing, and that those require some type of constant upkeep and repair, and sometime HUD funds are used and dedicated for that purpose. And I'm not sure if the federal policy exempt an entity if they are only using Section 8 vouchers. So I just wanted a little bit more clarification on that. The answer seemed really simplistic in that what we got back in the written response was, well, because we only do vouchers, we have no Section 3 obligation. And to me, that would be, if we're wrong on that question, then we're talking about millions of dollars that flow through the Met Council from HUD that have a federal requirement for low-income persons and businesses operated by low-income owners should get preference on employment opportunity. And that then speaks to, you know, the disproportionality issue of communities of color, protected group communities being the biggest population that would benefit from a Section 3 program. So once we get this all back again, I would love to have them come back and, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, to just focus in on that, because it speaks to, you know, some of the critical issues of pulling people out of poverty and equal access and opportunity. And if we're missing the mark on that program, that would be a huge, huge, huge miss for a big swath of our community.
I've noted that, thanks for the addition. One final thing is that we did not meet in June because we are not able to meet virtually without changing our bylaws. So that's why I had requested an update on the bylaws, because I feel like that was a very effective way for our subcommittee to very quickly get organized and advance work, is meeting virtually. So just my own opinion as the subcommittee chair is that we should really want to continue to meet virtually. Is there consensus?
Definitely.
Okay, on that. And so whatever we need to do to make that happen, I just would say that it would really help our committee to be effective. That's it.
Francisco has a really good idea that we will get to.
Awesome.
But I'm hoping we'll have quorum by the time we get to that part of our agenda. So
Got it.
I'm gonna hold on it.
Okay.
The operations subcommittee has not met since April, so I wasn't at the May meeting, so I don't know if there was an update given at our May meeting. When we met in April, we did decide to invite Regional Administrator Mary Bogey to come and present to us, and so we did that at our May meeting. And that is the only update that is at the top of my mind to share. I don't know, Edward, if there's anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share. We haven't met in a couple months.
No, I think we're gonna get to that part where she came back and shared with the group, so we can go in a little bit more in depth in, but
That sounds great.
you're right, we just want to get her here on the audit thing and a couple other things, so.
That sounds great. I'm realizing that Lila has name badges for us, and we could take, before we move on to our presentations, we could take a few minutes to do introductions since we've only been in person once. Some of us weren't there when that happened, so so for those of you that I haven't met in person, which is a few of you, I'm Leah Goldstein-Moses and have been co-chair since April of 21. And I represent District H, which is in the Southeast Metro. I live in Eagan.
Yeah, I'm Francisco Gonzalez, the co-chair of the EAC, and I'm a council member representing District 12, which is the East Metro Washington County, and I've been on the council since 2019.
Cy Jordan, Director of the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity.
Nancy Sitkoff, I'm an at-large member.
Phil Sterner, I'm council member of District 15, which is Eagan, Burnsville, Rosemont, and Grove Heights. So this is been on the committee not quite a year, I think so. Good to see everybody.
Sorry, Lee, I'm the council member for District 13, which is the eastern half of St. Paul and the Fresh Springs suburb just south of.
Edward McDonald, I'm not sure the district number, but it's pretty much Washington County. I think it's District 7 or 5. One of those.
Brianne Rothstein, I am a at-large member, and I am the chair of the Housing Subcommittee.
Vanessa Jenkins, I think it's District G, I think.
G7.
I don't know. But yeah, Vanessa, and also the Housing Committee with Edward and Brianne.
Sorry, I'm Zabaro Ed. I think I'm member at large and I'm just new and I'm excited to be here.
I'm Lila Eltawely, Enterprise Equity Senior Manager, and Washington County is District F.
District
F.
F. Oh, not even a number. I was way off.
My name is Kimberly Malone. I'm the manager of the Investigation Resolution Unit in the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity at the council.
Thank you. Thanks for pausing to do this introduction. Francisco.
Okay. So just moving on the agenda for today, and we have a couple of presentations. And the first one is the Anti-Racist Economic Justice and Trust project by the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And we have Cy Jordan here to talk a little bit more about that.
Good to see everybody again this month. Cy Jordan again, Director of the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. We had some short introductions last month, but I've been with the council just as a reintroduction since August of 2018, so a little over 3 years. And I report to the Regional Administrator, Mary Bogey, who you met just last month as well. So we want to get started and talk about the Anti-Racism Economic Justice Trust work that the council is doing. We refer to it as AREJ. I might get a little tongue-tied. I don't know why we keep mixing it up with AREG. It just seems to flow a little better. But it is the Anti-Racism Economic and Justice Trust work. And so with that, Greg, if you can move to the next slide, please. I want to give you a little bit of information about the council. Again, with many of you being new, what we committed to was introducing some information about the council and each of the times that we met together so that you can continue to be oriented to the work that we do. And so this one goes through the concept, of course, that no one can do this work alone. It's definitely too large. And so the council mission is around economic prosperity for the region, and we serve 7 counties, and then of course over 180 cities, 3 million residents, as well as Native people from 11 federally recognized tribes, and then we're growing, of course in diversity continuously and have about 300 languages that are spoken at home. And so with that, the Metropolitan Council serves all of those various and diverse groups. And the role here in your voice with the Equity Advisory Committee is vital to the work that we're doing across the council, whether it be from your profession, from your community work that you do, or also taking back information and bringing back the voices of the districts that you represent. Over the last, we're into already, I think, month 6 now, so since June, you have been introduced to and have met 5 of the 6 executive leaders in the Regional Administration Division, the Community Development Division, in Metropolitan Transportation Services Division, and also in the Environmental Services Division. You've heard twice from Metro Transit through the Chief of Staff and the equity representatives. And last month, again, you engaged with the regional administrator, and also the deputy regional administrator was introduced to you, who started in December of last year. And so as an executive leader in the RA, my commitment is that I continue to work with you as a committee and also help support the staff that will continue to work with you directly as well. You can go to the next slide, Greg. So we're going to jump into the work of AREJ. I won't go through each of the slides word for word. This material was provided in May, and then because of the time commitment, we moved this presentation to June. And so if you need to refer to the material again, we can certainly send it out to you if you don't have direct access to it. So CEI, the Center for Economic Justice Trust, they have convened the AREJ, and they are the ones who facilitate the work that we're doing. And so we actually have another member of EAC, Brianne, who's also involved in doing that work as well through CEI. And so the trust members for CEI, they generally include many private and public representatives across the state of Minnesota. Our chair, Charles Zerley, has committed the Metropolitan Council to the trust. He has signed an agreement for our involvement. He also participates actively within the trust. We have a peer action team here at Metropolitan Council to do our individual work that we commit to for the trust. Mary Bogey, the RA, is involved in that peer action team. George Gonzalez, the deputy RA, is also of service on that team. Councilmember Reba Chambliss is on the peer action team. Jody Jacoby, the director of procurement. Marcy Simon, the director of human resources. And Lisa Barajas, the director of community development, as well as myself, all serve on the peer action team for the council. And so with the CEI model, it is around shared accountability as well as co-creation. And so with co-creation, there is a commitment that we use our individual anti-racist talent in procurement, investment, and policy strategies. We agree to share and transfer power with BIPOC communities to achieve income and wealth equity, plus establish goals and invest responsibly, apply adaptive learning and sustained impact. And then under shared accountability, we also commit to equipping employers and policymakers as a whole by sharing tools and promising practices, doing consulting with each other, also connecting sectors of employers, BIPOC communities, and leaders. And so that is the structure that CEI has set out for this work. Next slide, please. Just wanted to show this to you briefly. It's a little hard to read on the screens here, but then you'll have access to that information in your materials. With systems of change for economic growth, there are 6 conditions of system change. We have committed to walking through 4 categories and 4 areas that we will be applying systemic change measures against. And so we've started so far in identifying on a results-based accountability. We've started identifying what the result is that we want collectively as a group to achieve. And with that, we've had several conversations well over a year now around root causes for each of our individual organizations, some shared conversation on root causes, and then also identified hot roots within our organizations. And as we've done that, we've looked at which of the 6 conditions around systems change apply to those hot root causes, and moving forward and identifying strategies to get to the outcomes that we've set individually. Next slide. One of the main asks of you today is going to be to contribute to our internal Metropolitan Council anti-racism definition. And so CEI, in the work that they're doing, their motto is that as individuals, again, we bring our anti-racist talents to the trust, and so we share our tools and resources. But as a council, the more that we've discussed this work and we've talked through how we want to represent, how we want to communicate, we understand that we need to define anti-racism for our organization and then be able to carry that through the continuous work that we're going to be doing. It also came up in the police work group. One of the recommendations was to use an anti-racism lens, and there was some discussion around what that meant for the organization. So we want to bring this to the EAC today and get your input and thoughts around the definitions that we started. Next slide, please. So stepping back a little bit, early on in the work when CEI first convened individuals across the state of Minnesota, not all of them now are in the trust, but there was a large group. They went through a workshop model to get to what do we want the result to be for this AREJ work. And this was the outcome of that. They came up with a statement that all Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and Asian people in Minnesota experience intergenerational economic prosperity, and that happened for each of those racial groups. So by applying the results-based accountability, what we want to do is identify the outcome, where we want to go, and work backwards into how we're going to achieve that result. Next slide, please. So through the work of our peer action team, we went through the 4 categories of people, procurement, investment, and policy, and we came up with 8 indicators. And so the 8 indicators are identified within the material. Those indicators, we started out with the specific pieces of information that can measure a part of the condition or the outcome that we want to achieve. And with that, we made some decisions that we would not reinvent the wheel at Metropolitan Council. We would go with the work that we have been doing since early on, before 2020, but that we put to writing in the council strategic plan in 2020. So that strategic plan covers the period of time and was an engagement with the council members for 2020 through the end of 2022. We also have our work being aligned with the Thrive 2040. We will be including this work that we continue to do in the development of Thrive 2050. We made sure that we aligned the affirmative action plan priorities that we have set for our organization, as well as the equity strategy and framework, and then our equity policy here within the council. So under our people measure, our council strategic plan goal is to increase the number of organizational leadership positions filled by people historically underrepresented. So we took that strategic plan goal and we made 3 different indicators. The first of which we started out with our own data within the council in September of 2021, and then we took another look at that data at the end of 2021. We also used other measures provided by CEI, Brookings Institute. We looked at the census data, and then for the outcomes, we use our own internal council projections that our community development research team does, and that's how we came up with the time period for 2030 for our outcomes. With people, we took a look at the percentage of employees that identify as Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and Asian, both for our workforce and for our leadership. We next took a look at our median wage ratio for those same categories compared to white employees. Our third indicator is the percentage of Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and Asian employees that earn less than a family sustaining wage. And so with that, we came up with the outcomes that by 2030, we want to reach the level of workforce with a projection of 2030 for each of those areas, and also that no wage gap should exist as compared to white employees within Metropolitan Council, and all employees in Metropolitan Council earn a family sustaining wage. So with that, they are lofty goals, but we are tracking, measuring, and moving forward with our strategies, many of which are already underway, but the work that we'll be doing here with EAC and also across the organization and in the extended community will help influence some of the strategies, and this will be a living